The people that are meant to be in your life won't need you to stay the same to feel safe. And if you've never had that, I need you to know that it exists. This morning, my partner and I had a late Sunday morning, got the chance to have breakfast and chit chat about all of the cool artist opportunities that they are going to be able to do this summer. And so they were sharing with me that they were thinking about a concept in terms of altars and grieving and change. They were trying to piece together something. They haven't quite solidified it yet. And they were sharing with me about a couple of our trips that we had when we were getting to know each other and still dating. And so they brought up our last trip before me moving out to Montreal, and it was a trip in Portland. We saw this wishing tree and where we wrote wishes on there for whatever our futures may hold. And I used that moment to then connect it to something else to then create this concept in terms of what does it look like when we have people around us who give us permission to change? And that's what brought me to wanting to share this with all of you. I say this because as I'm in the midst of change right now, as my partner's in the midst of their own change right now, as we are in the midst of change as humans and humanity and society, I think right now a lot of us are holding on to what's comfortable and trying to control the change. And as I was working through this concept with them of what can possibly work for their art installation, I was just sharing with them that it's actually a lot more work to try and control change than allowing it to happen. I used it with the example of like when you frown, it actually takes more muscles for you to frown than it takes for you to smile. I just want to sit here and give you permission to change, to evolve, to grow, and to become. And I say this because a lot of us are talking about becoming and this forward future thing that's happening. And as some of you may have been with me for the past couple of days or past few videos, I've been talking a lot about the difference between being and doing, and human beings and human doings, and how I think that we are finally moving away from a society that isn't all about just doing. Don't get me wrong, I think action is important, but also at the same time, you don't have to do anything. Like you have permission to just be, and recognizing just you in being, you're still gonna change. And don't get me wrong, there's proactive change and then there's like disintegration change. You kind of think about taking care of a plant. You know, you can either give it nutrients and water and fresh soil and sun, and then it's going to grow up. As you've seen in the last videos, if you're going to talk lovingly to it, if you're going to encourage it, you're going to support it, you're going to appreciate it, it's definitely going to be in a lot healthier state than a plant where you speak to it in the opposite way. And discourage it and don't give it the fresh nutrients and things that it needs to grow. As you saw in the video, it grew in the opposite direction. So no matter what, like change is going to happen. And I just want to bring a perspective shift to just realize that it truly is the only constant thing in this life. For a long time, I used to say that there's two things that are going to be guaranteed in this life: death and taxes. And taxes, I don't know, might not be. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. I'm not here. I'm not a financial consultant, but things are changing. If I'm really wanting to remind myself and grasp, like, okay, like change is always going to happen no matter what. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the change and wanting to do and be in what's safe. And so as I further explain this concept to my partner, I was asking them, what would it look like to support people in their changing and in their becoming? And so I feel like there's a lot of content out there right now that is really about leaving people behind or cutting people off or X, Y, and Z. And I was trying to bring a different perspective and asking us, like, what does it look like to actually be with people that are willing to support us in our change, to witness and to acknowledge it and know that like it's going to happen, like that it's inevitable, just like death and taxes were and are to some extent. And I was just curious about that because I was thinking of the installation and we were talking about, altars and talking about What does it look like to put down versions of ourselves, roles that we've had, yeah, just different masks down, and how can we grieve them and honor them and say thank you to them, but also like say, you don't serve me anymore in this season of my life. I feel like right now we're having a lot of conversations around grief and grieving what was and what we thought was going to be. And then I just started thinking, I was like, that's a very easy activity and concept to play with, doing that on an individual basis of grieving a past version of ourselves, a version of ourselves that isn't currently needed in this season anymore. But then I started thinking about what would that look like if this activity was actually the remembrance that other people can also be a part of your grieving process and your becoming process, and who are willing to give you permission to change. I feel like that is not what we're having enough conversations about, let alone not know how to do as well. I think a lot of conversations out there right now are just like leaving the people who won't allow us to change or won't allow us to grow, who won't allow us to evolve, because it's safer for them for us to be who we were to them when we first met them, or how they've always known us to be. And especially if you have long-term relationships, yeah, just to be in that role that works best for them. And so as I'm out here still looking for my people, I want to honor and celebrate one person who has really allowed me to evolve and to change and to grow within our friendship, and who's really been willing to get down and dirty as we go through the muddled shadows and dark sides of all of us and within us. And, that's my best friend that I'm wanting to honor them, because fortunately and unfortunately, I get to appreciate them more. I get to be grateful for them more, because unfortunately, my partner is experiencing the latter. Me coming into their life has asked for a lot of change in the life that they have built here in Montreal. And unfortunately, someone really close to them was not ready for that change and really has had a hard time really grappling with it, to the point where they've needed some time away from each other for it to really settle in. And, obviously with lots of conversations and processings and grieving in that, again, getting to see the dichotomy of like, okay, like this is how one friend can react to you changing and to evolving. But then this is also another way that a friend can respond to you changing and evolving. And I want you to know that they both exist and that it all can coexist. But I want to just remind us that just because there's a lot of conversation out there around cutting people off and doing things on our own and leaving people behind. And I guess I'm just curious as to like, what would it look like to understand that change is constant, and that the people that we're meeting right now are not going to be the same person for when that relationship chooses to separate or continues, or however the relationship goes on. And so if we can already have that understanding that change is constant going into relationships, how can we then support people in the change and the evolution of themselves? And more importantly, how do we give them permission? And I say this because as I'm getting to know my partner, even last night, I was grieving us now, but like from the future. I was like thinking about like, wow, we're in year one right now. And I started just like thinking of us in the future, God willing, and grieving of us now. I'm like, this is what life looks like right now, and just like feeling emotional about that. Just grieving already like the change that I know is going to happen. And again, recognizing for us, we've put meaning in our story around this weaving of our lives and this going in and going out and going in and going out, getting close and being separated, being close and being separated, and recognizing right now we're in a closeness. It's been so sweet and enjoyable, a beautiful process to be a part of, because to get close to someone is one of the one of the sweetest feelings to experience. But then there's also this recognition, like there's going to come a point where we're going to, come apart. And how are we going to navigate that change? How can we support each other in our growth in that, whatever that may look like? And again, this type of relationship, a marriage, has a lot of outside meaning and mythology and expectations and roles that come with it. I'm wanting to have conversations with them early on about change is going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but how can we build a firm foundation with each other and within our relationship and within our friendship so that when it does happen, I'm not saying that you can ever be prepared for it, but like when it does happen, how can we hold each other along with ourselves in it as lovingly and gracefully as possible? Recognizing conflict is going to come up, disappointments are going to come up, disagreements are going to come up, expectations aren't going to be met. And yeah, and it's going to be a messy process. But like we already knew that. I feel like that should just be for any relationship and for any friendship. How can we have this understanding and recognition like change is going to happen, change is going to come, change is on its way, change is coming. Again, it really hones in and zooms into the moment of presentness and gratitude and the sweetness of each moment and being like, oh shit, like this is truly all that we ever have. Because if you really look at it from a molecular point of view, we're constantly changing. Don't get me wrong, people can get stuck in their patterns, can get stuck in their ways, but it doesn't mean that change isn't happening. It's just, again, the difference between proactivity and the certain nutrients that you're putting into it and reactivity and the ways that you're discouraging it. But change is happening all the time. The best way to navigate change and evolution and growth, I think it's reestablishing the foundation and having the conversation be like, hey, like change is constant. Nature is constant. Nature is constantly changing. We're a part of nature. This is a part of the process. And how can we look at it from a different perspective so this isn't so painful? Again, witnessing my partner and the change that they're going through with their relationships, it's been painful to witness, and I can only imagine it's been painful to be in the experience. But again, I just want to share with you that there are people out there that are willing to like roll up their sleeves and like get down and dirty with you and be in the messy middle with you and do that work with you. So wherever you're at with your friendships and your relationships, I'm just wanting to share a different approach, a different conversation of acknowledging and recognizing and being aware of change. How can we move away from the narrative that we're supposed to be moving further away from each other? And look, I get it. The conversations around who's meant to be in your life and not. But what about the perspective of moving closer together to witness each other as we change, as we grow, as we evolve, as we become? Shout out to my best friend. Just want to say I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for rolling up your sleeves and wanting to support and witness and be a part of the ever changing of ourselves. And also wish that for you too. And I wish that for all of us. So I hope that this video was encouraging to you to just see things from a different perspective. If it did, and you want to support me in the continuation of making these videos and would love to keep me caffeinated, you can do so by buying me a coffee in the link below. I wish you well on your journey. I hope that this gives you a clue on how to possibly do relationships differently in the future, or even just doing relationships differently right now. And that again, I just want you to know that there are people out there that exist who won't need you to stay the same to feel safe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye now.